Welcome to the Coffee and Counseling Podcast, where two licensed psychotherapists give you their unfiltered opinions on mental health, wellness, life, and everything in between. It's real, raw, and ready to challenge what you think you know. Get ready for some tough love. Before we begin, just a brief disclaimer, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not take the place of therapy. We hope you enjoy today's session. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session of Coffee and Counseling, where we don't spill the tea, but the coffee will be piping hot while we talk about all things counseling. We're your hosts, Rachel Steinhardt
and Stephanie Van Schaick. Today, we're taking some time to do an end-of-year emotional check-in and reset. Let's not fall for the new year, new me messaging this year. Instead, join us today for a mini episode that offers a simple guided reflection you can do in real time. While we love journaling, you don't have to use that for today's session. Just give yourself some space in whatever way feels right for you to think about the prompts and reflect. So grab your coffee and let's get on into it. Rachel, in the spirit of reflection and intention for today, do you have an intention that you have ready to share with us for the new year?
Oh my gosh, I have so many, but I think my number one thing is for at least for this stage of my life, and I'm sure a lot of people in similar life seasons can relate to this. I think my intention is always how I can show up better as a mother and as a wife. And the truth is, as much as like that sounds so selfless and it's like, oh, yay. But the truth is that when you do that, it's like, it comes back to you, when you end up feeling good about how you are running your home and how you are parenting and how you are maintaining your relationship and how you are as a spouse, as a parent, and you're going to bed at night and you're good with your decisions and you feel happy with how those parts of your life are going, you in yourself end up feeling much better. So as much as it is like, yes, I'm thinking of my family and I love them. And number one, I'm doing it for them, but I'm also doing it for me because I want to be that better version of me. And I think that some of the ways I've grown the most within myself as a human and as an individual and how I relate to the world, I've learned so many of those lessons from being married and being a parent. So for me, that is definitely like my number one intention.
I love that. Yeah. So first off, I think that's an amazing intention, and I love your explanation too. Like, it's good for you and it's good for everyone, but that's really quite awesome. So one of my intentions, I think, would be to slow down more. I know that time, and I do have the tendency, and this is with therapists, that we have the tendency to sometimes not take our own tools that we know would be helpful. And I know for myself that I have the tendency to like overbook and overextend myself. And I really am hoping to, and I intend to try to just be more mindful of my time, not schedule and overexert myself as much as I tend to, and just be a little bit more flexible cognitively when it comes to time, because I think that's a big skill or a big thing just to be working on, to be more flexible with that, because that'll help relieve a lot of stress as well. So it's just kind of like all things time is just being more mindful and slowing down in that regard as well for myself.
I love that for you, Steph. I second that intention for you.
Well, thank you, Rachel. So let's start by talking a little bit about why these emotional check-ins matter. Of course, we understand that it's just so typical that at the end of any year, a lot of people are going straight for, what are my resolutions for the next year? And we are very aware of that. However, there's a whole lot that goes into planning that before you even get to the point of planning your resolution. So today's session is not going to be about resolution setting or how to go on and do all the things. We actually will be doing that in our session next week, and when the new year starts, of course. We are going to be focusing more on the check-ins to form the basis of what your resolutions ultimately will come from. when we talk about this reflection and guide you through here, the questions today and what to reflect on, it builds self awareness and helps to prevent old repeating patterns. We might have found this in the past where you have the same resolutions every year and you just kind of find yourself in the same types of patterns. Well, what is it that contributed to that? What are we not actually addressing? What are we not being honest with ourselves about or even aware of? You don't need a trillion hours or anything like that. You can just start with a few grounding questions, and everyone's reflection is going to look different. This might be the major reflection for you, and maybe you want to go deeper in it. Like we said, you don't need to have a journal, but maybe you do want to dive more into reflecting and all of that. But we're hoping that even just kind of going through today will be a great jumping off point, and maybe the whole reflection for someone. It's meant to walk through these questions and reflections gently. And we hope that you can go through today's session with not without judgment for yourself and just be open and honest with yourself because that's going to be the best for you.
Absolutely. And, whoever has been here with us from the beginning and listening to all of these sessions, we'll hear a lot of patterns in the things that we say, and we'll hear a lot of similarities and things that we bring up in all of these episodes. And one thing that I'm constantly saying is that awareness is one of the biggest keys in growth, in changing, in mastering yourself. And this is really a wonderful step and tool in how to create that awareness, right? So sometimes we're so focused on moving forward, and which is a good thing, right? The point isn't to just look backward and stay there and focus on your past, but there's so much that can be learned from the past. There's so much awareness that can be created from the past. And in order for resolutions and goals to work the way we want them to, and like Steph said, to not end up in these cycles that are just repetitive every single year, a huge part of what creates that is the lack of the awareness and not catching patterns, not picking up on things that are underlying issues, not recognizing why something is coming up for us. So thinking about what is making up the different parts and aspects of our lives that is relating to the things that we want to change, that is potentially creating the obstacles to the things that we want to change, and really becoming attuned to what does my world and life look like? What do I want it to look like? And what's the discrepancy there? So, taking a moment and giving yourself a couple of prompts to help answer some of these questions for yourself. So, for example, asking yourself, what drained me this year? What, you know, depleted me of some of my energy? Now, that doesn't always have to necessarily be coming from like a bad place. I think a lot of the time we think of someone draining you, you think of like a toxic person, but it's not always in that way. Sometimes it could be you overextended yourself, or you're overcommitting to things, you're working really, really hard. Maybe sometimes you are therapist. This is for you. We extend ourselves more than we should emotionally sometimes. Maybe we turn into the therapist friend when the friends want it and we don't want it, or people are constantly coming to us to hold space for them, which is a beautiful thing and great, but we also have to know our own boundaries. And this can show up in so many ways for so many different people. For my and so many people in my personal life, if you're listening to this episode, yes, I am talking to you. For those of you who are waking up at the crack of dawn and going to sleep at 2 a.m. and working your heads off because you want to get to your goal, listen, I understand that the reality of life is sometimes you really have to, you got to bite the bullet to get to your goals, and that's okay. But to what price? And it's not for us to tell you what that price is, but it's for you to reflect and ask yourself, is this draining me to a point where it's still worth it? Is this still what I want? Does this still make sense? Is this healthy? Is this safe? And looking at those reflections, right? So we really want to invite our listeners to notice themes within their life, in their relationships, at work, habits that they're having, obligations that they're making to themselves and the world around them. And we want to encourage you to just be brutally honest with yourself, but don't judge yourself so much. Give yourself grace, because noticing that something isn't working, noticing that you could be working on something or doing something better, right? I can say a lot of people struggle with this. Lord knows I've struggled with this. I think I still struggle with this, is constructive criticism and being able to hear criticism from an external place or an internal place and take it to grow and to better yourself and not to put yourself down or feel bad, because we're not going to be able to move forward from there. That's not like a positive place. It is a possible thing to hear things that need to be fixed and to literally wholeheartedly take that as a positive and be like, amazing. Now I have something to work with. Now I know where I'm going. Now I know what I'm doing. That doesn't have to be like, oh, I hear this thing that's not working or something that I don't like how I was doing it this past year or something that I really messed up on, whatever it is, and then sit there and say, how could I? I'm a horrible person. I can't believe I messed up in that. I can't believe I let this go. Whatever it is, sitting there and having a pity party, it's not going to get us anywhere. And quite frankly, that like shame spiral, it's just not productive whatsoever. So being able to sit with all of these reflections and all of these newfound awarenesses without all of that judgment and coming more at it from a place of, let me sit with it, let me meditate on it, let me see where growth can come from that.
Mhm.
um, and while you're doing that, if you're actively doing this while we are in this conversation, I really want to invite you to breathe, to unclench all the parts, because I do think that this can bring up a lot of heavy emotions for a lot of people. A lot of us really want to be the best version of ourselves. And when we're realizing that we aren't hitting certain goals, or we didn't hit certain goals, or we're not where we want to be, or something isn't working, we let that take an emotional toll physically and spiritually. And it's just, that's not the goal for this conversation at all. So as we're doing this, do it with kindness, do it with grace to yourself, and keep breathing.
Mhm. Rachel, you had brought up something that sparked something in me when you had said about like waking up at the crack of dawn when you go to sleep at 2 a.m. And I'm hoping that for most people that that's something that can be changed. But even so, this reflection isn't to look at it from the point of like, what do I need to change? It's really just being an honest inventory of what it is that your life is at right now, where you are in every way. And some things actually might be really exhausting, but you can't change them. Like
Mhm.
for an example, I was just working with a client a couple evenings ago who is currently in high school and wakes up way too early, and with all their commitments and homework and all of that stuff, they're going to sleep like really, really late and getting way less sleep than any teenager should. And I know that this is the case for many teenagers and many people in general. And there's not much that you can do from that. Maybe you can, maybe there's some things that aren't that important to you that you can drop, or you can maximize your time or whatever. But that's not what the goal is here. It's just being really open and honest with yourself as to where your life is right now and how that's affecting you. And then again, we could get to the next part in our next session next week. So that's something to be mindful of as well. And something else that you had mentioned, which I think could also be a great part of reflection, if you are comfortable, if there's someone or some people in your life who you truly value their opinion and they truly care for you, you can feel free to ask them like, hey, like what do you think about how my year went from like, did you notice anything that maybe I was struggling with? Or sometimes we put our blinders up and we don't even realize that we've been running through some pain or something like that. And maybe a loved one can be like, yeah, I kind of noticed that you were really stressing yourself out in this regard. You don't have to do this, but if you have someone or people in your life that you value and you also believe have your best interests in mind, consider asking them too and taking that into reflection as well.
And if you have a healthy relationship, I just want to add, and this person is able to communicate it to you in a healthy way,
Mhm.
because obviously, like, if you go to the wrong person with this, that can turn into a very toxic conversation.
Mhm.
um, and also the point, and I want to be very clear because this is not Stephanie's point at all, you're not seeking validation from other people. You're going to other people who you trust their opinion and respect their opinion and saying, hey, I kind of want to check myself. I kind of want to hold myself accountable. And as much as we're all pro therapy, you don't always need a therapist to do that. If anything, obviously, the people in your life day in and day out are going to see things that we don't see because we can only work off of the framework of what you tell us, which is quite frankly bias. And
Mhm.
when you have someone that you do have a healthy relationship with and you can do that with, um, it can be incredibly helpful. And just to share like a personal piece of information. So I'm really happy that you brought up that example, Steph. When my family had New Year's last year and this year, me and my sisters and my mom all went out for like an ice cream date. And it was right
Oh.
before New Year's. And we kind of went around the table because we all trust each other and we're best friends. And we were like, okay, everyone's going to say something that like this person is like did incredibly and like is just like shining in life with, and then something that we really think that they would benefit from working on. And it
Mhm.
was so healthy and so productive, and like we all took it and like really tried to work on it this year, and we were able to like bring it up for each other when it came up in the year without it coming up as an attack, but being like, hey, do you remember we talked about that? This is kind of, what we were talking about. And we were able to hold each other accountable in a loving and respectful way and grow in a productive way, which was great. So if you're able to do this in that kind of like loving and safe environment, it can be a really incredible thing and very powerful. So thank you so much, Steph, for bringing it up.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing up that example with your family. That's so amazing, and you could see it in action. So awesome. And then another reflection question that we can be asking ourselves is what energized me? So Rachel was talking about like what drained me, but on the contrary, like what brought you life? What brought you joy?
Mhm.
What brought you purpose? And these are the things that it could be so small. It doesn't have to be, oh, when I went to Disney World, that trip. I mean, that could be part of it, but it can also be little moments of peace. It could be when you had a time that you could sleep in a little bit longer, or a weekend day, or a conversation, or whatever conversations you have with a particular person, hobbies. It could be so many different things. So just ask yourself, what gave me life? What memories do I have that I hold in high regard from this past year? Was there anything that just felt incredibly meaningful to me? Or some moment that I remember feeling like I feel grounded, I feel at peace. These are all things that we want to incorporate more into the next year. However, we just want to observe them and ask ourselves, like, well, why are these things bringing me energy? Why are these things energizing me? And maybe you can learn and reflect on that to learn even more things that might be things that you want to consider adding into your life in the future. And also, this prompt helps you to reflect on where alignment exists in your current life. I know we've talked about this before, that one thing that's so important in our lives is that our the way we're living it is actually in line with our values, because when those are not in line, that usually does cause disruption in our lives. It causes lack of peace, lack of joy. So when we can recognize that I feel aligned in this sense and maybe a little out of whack in this, that's more information, more power, and more awareness that you can bring into the next year when we get to actually creating those goals. So just take a moment, reflect on this, ask what gave me life, what brought me joy this year, and let that sink in a little bit.
100%. And this really makes me think of like a secret into therapy, or therapy with me. But whenever my clients are in a place of doing really, really well, and sometimes this backfires a little bit because you're going to have moments where you just do really well and then you kind of mentally check out of therapy. You're like, I'm good. Like, what do you mean? Like, everything's fine, everything's good. And they kind of stop doing the management work and stop doing some of the work that we're talking about. So that can be kind of harmful. But I always encourage clients, I'm like, you guys don't understand. when you are in a good place, that is when to be doing the most amount of work. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm fine. And I always think of Ross and Friends, like coming in with his 700 margaritas, being like, I'm fine. But, sometimes, first of all, when they're in that space, they're not actually fine. They just like had a good week. But my point is, when you are actually in a good place, quite frankly, that is truly the time. And this is what Steph is trying to say. You have the headspace, the physical energy, the mental energy, the emotional energy to sit back and be like, hold on, how did I get here? Like, why was I not here before? What's making me be able to sustain this? What's working? Maybe you now have, which I know sounds so like, like Rachel, why would I do that to myself? I'm with you. But this is also the time where you're able to like let yourself go to those places that you never want to go to because you don't have like the emotional capacity to hold them. If there's things that you never processed, if there's grief that you've never let yourself feel, if there are past events, and I'm not saying you have to sit there and like dig up every bone in your closet, not at all. But there are things in our past that we kind of just shove under the rug because we just never have the time and space to properly allow ourselves to deal with them. And it is in certain areas popping up and holding us back. That would be a great time to work on those things because you are now in a space to be able to hold those things and deal with those things in a healthy way. Right. So that's one thing that you can do at that time. You can also sit back and say, hey, you know what I've realized when I like eat this way or sleep this way or make time for friends or when I started this new hobby or when I changed my job or when I created this type of schedule or when I started utilizing this tool, I started realizing, pick any of the things I just said or all of the above or some of it, right? Or something I didn't mention. You are then starting to realize like this is the recipe for what's working well in my life. And if I want to keep feeling this and hold on to this, and I'm not saying life isn't going to hit you and you're never going to have a sad moment again, but what is giving you the ability to manage this healthy space, this place of wellness, right? This is what we're always talking about in therapy. This is the goal in life. We're not bringing you to a place of you're never going to experience obstacles and you're never going to experience hardship and you're never going to experience suffering. We're helping you build the tools so that when life hits you hard, you can hit back harder. You can hold yourself in it. You can survive it. You can move forward from it. So, looking at what am I creating in my life right now that's giving me the building blocks to have that resilience, to have that strength, to be able to push forward, to be able to meet life's obstacles with confidence and with courage and not feel like everything that triggers us is going to make us come crashing down, right? In order to be able to sustain that, we have to actively do things to sustain that. But sometimes what happens is we unknowingly and a little bit mindlessly find ourselves in a healthy place in life. And we're not actually really sure how we got there. We're not actually really sure what we did to bring us to that space. And as wonderful as that may feel, it's not actually very helpful. Because then when life hits you hard again, you might not know how to actually recreate that. You're kind of like, wait a minute, but like I was fine 5 minutes ago. Like why did I not? Because that intention and that awareness isn't there. And so if you're able to create that intention and that awareness and that insight for yourself when things are going well, when you are in a healthy space, when you have overcome things, when you've set yourself up for success in life in terms of how you're dealing with and interacting with the world, then you are able to say, okay, I've figured out X, Y, and Z are my secret tools. I have figured out this, and this doesn't work for me. I have figured out that this, and this are crucial for me to maintaining a space of wellness physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so that's really what we're talking about when we're creating those reflections, also coming from a good place, but from both places is what are those keys to all the doors that unlock me living that life that I want, where no matter what the world looks like and no matter where life may take me, I feel like I can handle it. And I feel like not that, we figured life out because I think we're all trying to figure life out every single day. But when you look at someone, you're like, they seem like they have their lives figured out. In the reality, if they do, that's what it is really. I think that what it really comes down to is like you unlocking those keys for yourself, figuring out all of these parts of life that create that balance that we're always talking about, and being able to hold on to them and be able to be in the driver's seat of them because you're aware that you're doing it. You are aware that this is what it is that I need to be doing.
Mhm.
And so that's really what so much of this episode is talking about. And what we want you to reflect on is is to not just like move forward mindlessly. Take a minute, take a beat, look back, allow all the things you've lived through, good, bad, the parts of life that are working, the parts of life that are not working, to give you the opportunity to gain that knowledge of yourself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. The one thing that you had mentioned that I do want to give an example for, when you said about how the time and space for reflection, well, first off, it can absolutely happen in any point when we are in a bad space or not so great space, but also in those moments in time that we feel fine and all of that. So I know that I've done this many a times with my clients, especially who struggle with eating disorders, because as we all know, or if you don't, maybe this is the first time you're hearing this, that recovery is not linear, that it could be messy. So there's highs and lows and all of that. And then when we are in a place where my clients like, I feel like really good, I feel really fine, I feel really grounded, like things are going really well for me, I always ask them to take some time and reflect on what might have brought us to this point. And I really highly encourage them to write it down, because what happens is that we might hit another low and might not be as intense or anything like that. But when we can look at our own words and our own reflections to say, that got me through, that can get me through again. And when we can revert back and say, okay, these are the things that I was doing at a point where I was able to move forward in life and feel better in life, we can bring that back. So reflection is such a vital part for, I believe, for our overall well-being, even when we're not struggling with something in particular, because reflection is, it gives us a time where we're able to say, this is working, like everything Rachel said. So I'm not going to go into all of that, where like unlocking the keys, understanding how we're using that in life. But we also don't want to get stuck in reflection, because that is something that can just like we're never moving forward. So it's a nice, careful balance between reflecting, which I believe often gets overlooked in lieu of like the shiny, fun goal setting and all of that. So that's just something to keep in mind as well.
All right. So asking ourselves with another prompt potentially, what am I carrying into next year? And what is going to stay here? Like, what's going to stay put and we don't need to bring it? Right. And I think a huge part of this is distinguishing between things that we convince ourselves are lessons, but really they're just baggage or extra weight that we're carrying that we really don't need to be. I think people talk a lot about I'm forgiving somebody for myself, not for them, and like things like that. Whether or not that's true is not even what I want to get into right now, but I think it's just this concept of, if there are things that you are holding on to that are not actually servicing you, that are not actually helping you, that are not actually getting you to where you want to go, maybe leave them be. Um, Not every single thing that you experienced and you are letting be enmeshed within your being is a positive life lesson. And I think sometimes we convince ourselves of that because we have such a hard time letting go of certain things or working through or past certain things. And we really have to understand that there is a difference between a lesson lived, a lesson learned, versus living through something and never ever letting it separate from our identity or from our experience of the world in a way that can very much negatively impact how we live our life. So asking yourselves where that might come up for you. Um, and really like what beliefs and habits and boundaries or relationships are worth continuing, what aren't. And I think a lot of the time in the therapeutic space and mental health space especially, they talk a lot about setting more boundaries and removing unhealthy relationships, and you know um removing habits that aren't healthy or whatever. But honestly, this works both ways. Maybe there is a relationship that you have not been working on enough. Maybe there is a relationship that you let go of that you want to rekindle. Maybe there's a family that you separate, a family member you separated yourselves from, and you want to um, try again. I don't know. That's okay too. Maybe there's a boundary that you're like, maybe that boundary is no longer necessary. Maybe the person changed, or maybe that boundary was a little overboard and I didn't really need to do that, or maybe it wasn't helpful. Maybe there's a boundary that is really healthy, but it needs to be talked about a little bit more with a friend. I don't, you have to figure out how this works for you. It's not always about like going forward and making your walls higher. That's not always what it means when people say, like, reflect on your relationships or reflect on your boundaries. And sometimes it does. That is fine. Sometimes we need to create more boundaries. Sometimes we need to be careful with unhealthy relationships in our lives. I'm not saying not, but I'm saying it goes both ways. All things are valid within the journey of life, and it can be the other way around as well. Um, and like also thinking about what no longer fits in within your life in terms of where you want to go. Like, is this helping you get to your goals? Is this helping you be the person you want to be right now? Is this helping you live the life that you want to be living? Like, when you think of, and I think we all have had like images and dreams about what our lives would be looking like, right? What is the reason that that's not what it looks like right now? Is there something happening in your world that's stopping that? Um, and this isn't about like reinventing your entire self or, creating a whole new identity. It's about like nicely and slowly editing certain things of your life that can very easily be improved. And I think we're talking about this, and even as I'm saying it, things come up that can feel really, really heavy and intense. But this doesn't all have to be an intense thing. This could be like, I'm realizing that like my morning routine is super not working for me and it's making me cranky throughout the day. And I want to change up like the schedule of the timing that I do each thing. It could be something so, what, I'll give you guys an example that's so ridiculous and so dumb and small, but it just goes to show you how the little things can really become the big things. Every Sunday I have like a very unless we have an entire day out with my family, I have a pretty set schedule of the things that I do with my kids, and I pretty much am like running a daycare for them. Like, we get up, we have our pancake mornings, we do some dancing with music on, we do art, we do play, we do all kinds of different things.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the tables I work on with my kids, it's like the way that I would be sitting. I was like sitting in the middle, and then my kids are like on all sides of me. And one day, I never really thought I have a dining table that's made of all glass, and we really use it for Shabbat or like nicer dinners. We don't really use it during the week. And one day, my husband was like, honey, why don't you try sitting at the head of the table and have the kids on the sides of you where you can better manage them in terms of where you're sitting and located? And they're also separated on separate sides of the table. So they stop fighting with each other and picking at each other's stuff. And this sounds so ridiculous. It's like which table I'm sitting on. But
Mhm.
this little thing that I had been doing every single Sunday for like 2 hours turned like 2 hours of torture and fighting into 2 hours of bliss. Because just the way that like the structure of how we were sitting and me being able to manage all the kids easier because of where I was sitting, and also the fact that the table was made of glass so the cleanup was so much faster. It was like life altering. And I said to him, I'm like, thank you, that was genius. And I really have thought of it myself. But that's obviously like, this is a really small silly thing, but my point is like, that's something that created a little bit of an impact, quite frankly, on every single Sunday with my kids. And it's
Mhm.
something so silly and small. And so we are talking about all these like life altering, intense things, but we're also talking about the cute little things that just make up the different aspects of your life, you know?
I think those are the things that we really need to reflect on more, because a lot of times when we are reflecting and talking about New Year's resolutions and all of those things, we tend to go for like the big crazy things. But actually when we look very small, most of our habits, most of our lives are built from the small moments, the small habits that we form. So, yes, maybe the act of moving from one table to another might not have been the biggest deal, but those 2 hours having shifted so much for you, I'm sure also impacts every other moment of your life because, like, okay, that might have been more restful. And then you have more energy to do the other things and all of
Yeah,
those things.
it totally, I think it actually like shifted to a degree. I mean, Lord knows I'm still tired, but it definitely shifted my mood for the rest of Sunday because what would happen is it was so hard to navigate all of them with like Play-Doh and art stuff and all these different supplies when we're all sitting on one side of the table because the original table was against the wall. So we're all sitting on one side of the table and I'm like leaning over, pushing this one, trying to stop them from fighting. It was so exhausting that by the end of those 2 hours, which was like still midday on a Sunday, because everyone with toddlers knows like they wake up at the crack of dawn. So when you hit 2 p.m., it feels like 8 p.m. and you're exhausted. But this is what would happen. It's like after those 2 hours, I'd feel so drained, and I still have the entire rest of the day where I have to keep them entertained. So I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's like it's just a lot. But,
Right.
and by the way, for anyone listening to this, that's like, "Well, where is her husband?" My husband works on Sundays. He works very, very hard, and then the minute that I need to tap out, his break from work is watching the kids. So, shout out to my husband who is amazing
Aw,
on Sundays as well.
shout out for sure. All right. Another prompt is thinking about what's one thing that you can let go of before January. And maybe there's a bunch of things that come along for you that you are really wanting to let go of. And maybe that's just not realistic for you right now. So try to pick one thing that you could truly work on letting go of. And the great thing is, I think that so many people get trapped up in, like, let me make the major shifts when the new year starts, but you can change things in February. You can change things on a Tuesday. You can change things in the summer. You can change things whenever. So let's just start with one thing that you can let go of. Maybe it's the smallest thing because that, or the easiest thing to help build confidence that you can work on this. Or maybe it's something that's really difficult for you and really causing a lot of pain for you. And that is the thing that you know you need to work on letting go of first. So it can be big, it can be small, it could be a thought pattern, it can be an expectation, it could be pressure that you're putting on yourself in any way. It could be a habit. There's not any one right or wrong answer for that. It's just what's right for you. And it doesn't have to be something that you feel is coming from a perfectionistic standard or anything like that. Letting go can be very like symbolic. It doesn't have to be something that it really is just an intention of letting go more than anything. And if you struggle, by the way, with letting go, one thing that I recommend to my clients is like a visualization, like letting go, like writing whatever are you wanting to let go of on a balloon and visualizing yourself letting it go. There's a lot of really great visualization, guided visualization techniques on YouTube for letting go. So, however you need to do that, maybe you write it down on a piece of paper, you cut it up, you burn it in a safe manner. If that's something that's helpful for you to have something tangible to help you let go of something, go for it. That's totally
Mhm.
fine, and it's something that's really helpful for a lot of people. So be realistic with yourself. Find something that you can manage right now, that you could take on right now, that this is something that I can actively work on letting go of. Do not set yourself up to fail in this. Which I hate to use that word because there's a lot of connotation that comes with that word. But for lack of a better one, set yourself up for the most success possible. Be honest and realistic with yourself. So some ideas that might help get the juices flowing to help you determine what it is that you need to consider letting go of. And of course, the other reflection points would be helpful in this as well. But maybe you want to let go of rushing. That's something that I absolutely am going to be working on at some point this year. I don't know if it'll be my first priority, but like I said, with timing and that being something I want to work on, it's slowing down. Rushing is something that it's very bothersome. So letting go of that. And so for some people, that might look like trying to leave whatever you're leaving for, leave a little bit extra time for you to get ready. But sometimes, and for me, it's more of a mental thing. Like it's more something that I have plenty of time, but I feel like I'm rushing to the next thing. So that's something that I'll be actively working on. And for anyone else who is doing that, maybe that's your intention as well. It could be letting go of like people pleasing. And I would encourage you to even break that up even smaller. Like, what is that going to look like for you? Is there someone that maybe you're always ending up doing, like overextending yourself for because you are afraid of letting them down? Maybe that's the area that you want to start with, that to help you lessen this behavior that you tend to have. Maybe it's letting go of self criticism around anything. It could be around productivity. It could just be self criticism in general. It could be self criticism about your body. So we invite you to just take a moment, reflect on some of these ideas, and let yourself naturally come up with what you think that you need to let go of. And maybe you're going to spend a little bit more time after today's session to really identify what makes the most sense for you and what you want to work on letting go of first for January.
Mhm. The two things to let go of that come up for me with so many of our clients is letting go of perfectionism and letting go of control. Now, I think those are humongous things to let go of. So, if that's something that when I just said that, your brain went, "Ooh, she's talking to me." If that's you, obviously, me saying that is not going to fix your entire psychological makeup. But what I want you to think about is where that's showing up for you in life, and maybe choose one place in your life to let go of it. Just one.
Yeah.
And we're eventually working towards, letting go of it to a certain degree completely. But
Mhm.
let's start with one because I think that those are two things that can really make you feel trapped in your own life.
Yeah.
And you do have the power to let go of it.
Yeah, so that's a really great point. Maybe what we want to do is look at where we struggle the most in, and maybe they're more so like constructs, like you said, perfectionism or control, or the need to be like the good girl or the good guy, or whatever
Mhm.
identity you might be falling into. That might be the starting point to identify then the smaller thing of like, what do I start with to let go of? If that's what you're working on. So great
Mhm.
point.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's do like a quick 60-second guided reset together. So we're going to just have a gentle grounding moment. If you can find a comfortable place to sit, if you can go and do this outside, maybe sit on grass, anywhere that is comforting and feels safe and feels quiet and serene. We're going to take a nice deep breath in through our nose. We're going to hold it for 6 seconds. And as slowly as we can, breathe it out, reflecting on our past year, setting the intention of awareness of the things that are coming up for us. Notice what your body is feeling like as you're reflecting, after you're reflecting. Loosen up some of those muscles, unclench your jaw. Think about and honor what is coming up for you without the need to fix it right now. We're just creating awareness, knowledge. We're gathering our little keys to our doors, but we don't need to open them today. And I just want you to kindly say to yourself, I can move forward gently. I'm not in a race. Life is a journey, it's a long marathon. We're just going to put one foot in front of the other. But right now, we're not even going to put one foot in front of the other. We're just going to stand still. We're going to stand still in the reflection of the past, in the reflection of giving ourselves grace and time and space to hold all the things that this year carried, to let go of the things that we want to let go of, and to just exhale all of it out. And whenever you're ready, you can come out of that. And if you would like to continue that reflection longer, I encourage and invite you to do so. And if you want to try and do this again on your own, and we've said this in previous episodes as well, there are many tools, YouTube videos, guided meditations to help your thought process and also physical experience during some of these reflections and meditations. And we definitely invite you to look some of those up. We may post some of those in the notes as well.
Well, thank you so much for that, Rachel. It's so funny because I know that I've had so many moments where a client will say to me that, like, when we get into session together, like, wow, that was the first deep breath I had taken all day. And I could say that I was doing this along with Rachel while she was guiding us. And I took couple deep breaths, and that was really nourishing. And it's always such a good reminder to slow down, to take some deep breaths, whether that's going to be in just breathing and bringing attention to your body, or for these purposes that we just went through is reflection. That either any of those intentions are really wonderful. So thank you everyone for joining us for today's not so mini session. We always underestimate the ability that we have to talk. So that's something that we
Which is why we started this podcast in the first place.
Exactly. And just a reminder that emotional check-ins don't have to require perfection. It doesn't have to require like a lengthy piece of time. It doesn't have to be at the end of the year or the end of the week or the end of anything. It can be at any point, whenever you feel as though you want to check in with yourself. We encourage you to do it regularly, and help that to inform what your next steps are. But also just knowing where you are right now is so powerful. If you know anyone who might benefit from this episode, please consider sharing it with them. And we will be back next Tuesday in the new year with more conversations and more coffee. And next session is going to be now the next step, when we're actually starting to take those steps forward, is all about setting goals and actually working on those resolutions, coming from the jumping off point of where we reflected on today. So we are hoping that you all have a very happy and safe new year. And we look forward to seeing you next year and next week.
Thank you guys for being here, and we hope you tune in, like, subscribe, and comment below with any questions or thoughts. We're always happy to get back to you. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Please follow our Instagram at Coffee and Counseling Podcast and send any questions you have about any topic to us via direct message for a chance for your question be featured in one of our next sessions. You can also email us your questions or topic suggestions at coffeeandcounselingpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure to check out some of our other sessions available to you right now. Once you drink up all of those and your coffee, come back next Tuesday for our next session.
The information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute therapy or mental health advice. Listening to this podcast does not establish a therapeutic relationship between you and the hosts. If you are in need of support, we encourage you to seek help from a qualified mental health professional. This podcast is not a substitute for individualized care. We do offer individualized therapy. If you're interested in individual therapy with one of us, please visit our practice website and send us an email to set up a free consultation call. All of the links and our contact info will be in the show notes.